This is an interesting exercise because it demonstrates how we can pass data back and forth between grids and UX components, and using one UX to edit or add data into a table. Um, you probably don't want to do this um, because there are action JavaScripts that will allow you to edit a current record or add a current record. I couldn't really see how to change that process on the fly, so you'd wind up having two UX components, but that might not be so bad. But I'll take you through this process because this works quite nicely. It's just it gets involved, I'd say. So here we have a grid, and we've got a couple of buttons, edit and add, and we'll go and edit South Bend. So there's South Bend, and we can make changes to it. It's just regular stuff. And I'll close that, and we'll go to edit Leanne. So there's Leanne, so that's good. And then we'll go and we'll add a record. So we're going to add a new record, but as you said, you wanted to copy all the aspects of the current record in. So let's go ahead and do that. So we're going to do South Bend. So we're on a brand new record now. We're on submit is alive, and I'm not using new record here at all. I was just there for my tests. But notice we don't have a key in place. In this particular case, my key's an auto number. It may not be on yours, or it may be on yours. It doesn't really matter. You can just set that. But we are dealing with the new record. So if I click submit at this point, I've got the UX set up with the action JavaScript just to edit the current record that's being displayed. So that's a new record now, record number 78. So if we go back to our grid and come down to the bottom, there's 78. That's our brand new one. Go back to the top, and let's do Graham here. We'll add a new Graham record, and I'll just click submit. There's our new record. So come back to the grid, go down to the end. So there's our new record in there. And of course, any changes you make will be saved because you're just editing a record at this point. So if we go back to South Bend and we add a record, we change JSON to XXXX, and we submit it. So that's our new record. We'll come back and have a look. So there's our record. Of course, JSON's still, original JSON is still there. There he is there. So how to do this? This is interesting stuff. Let's go in here. We've got it set up the same way that you do for the grid. So here's our grid. Here's our first button. I'll pull this in a little bit. There's our first button. Open a A5W page, same way that you had it. We're passing through two variables. ID is equal to customer, exactly the way you had it. Plus I'm passing in an action, a new variable called action, and this one's equal to edit. So that's how we know we're editing that. So that's fine, very straightforward. And our add button here, doing exactly the same thing. Only this time we're passing through an action equals add. Okay, so we're opening up an A5W page just the way that you're doing it. Save that. And so here we are back in our, let me just extend this a bit. Here we are back in the UX component. So we've got onDialog initialized. Same stuff as you have set up. If variable exists, if the ID is there, then we grab the ID. Else it should be blank. I should change that. I'll save it. It doesn't matter. It's always coming through. It's always the ID is always there. Okay, and then we've got another test. So if the ID is not blank, then we test another variable, the action variable. If the request action variable is there and its value is add, then we're going to push out some JavaScript, and the JavaScript we're going to run is just an AJAX callback that I call get data, and we're putting this into the code after they execute server-side action. So this sets up a bunch of JavaScript, and now we're going to ride along on this and append our own onto its code. So it's going to populate with tables, data with populate our UX with data from the table, and then we're going to run our action, which is get data. Now our action, if we're going to have a look in that, JavaScript actions, all this is, if I go and edit this action, it's an AJAX callback called get data. That's all it is. So I didn't have to call an action, but I thought let's use everything. There's our get data. Here it is right here. So what are we doing here? What we need to do is save the data. So we've opened up our UX component, we've populated it with data from our table, but you can't just zero out the ID at that point because you're editing a record. It's a real record. You're not on a new record, and just zeroing out that or nulling out the ID just won't cut it. So we've got to put that UX into a new record state. So the first thing we're going to do, because we're in that UX, then because we're in the UX, we have and we populated it with data, we have e.data submitted available to us. So we're just saving that into a session variable. Now we've got the data. So get data is our return statement, so that's great. We set up a new record. That's the first thing we're going to do. So that's cool. And then we're going to do another AJAX callback to set up the data for the new record. We can't do it here because we need to put that in a new record format. So we're kind of bouncing all over the place, but we're following all the kind of rules. And you could just as easily just take all the data, open up a connection string, and write the data directly out to the table, and what the hell, you're done. But if you want to do it this way, this is an interesting way to do it. It's an interesting exercise. Anyway, so we set up a new record, then we do an AJAX callback to set the data. But we got to give new record a little bit of time to finish up. So we put a set timeout on there, and this is just escaped because it's got to be in quotes. So we do a set timeout for 100th milliseconds, and that's enough time. And all we're doing is we're calling set data. Now set data is back up here, and what set data is doing, I can go back up. Here's set data. So what set data is doing is it's grabbing session cur data. Now we know it's in there, but it's a pointer array, and it's when we get e.data submitted, that looks like e.data submitted dot first name dot last name dot company. So it's a pointer array. So we've got to figure out what fields are in there, and that's the nice thing about this technique, because you could have 100 fields in the UX, or 10 fields, or you could add 20 fields. It won't make any difference. This will always get every bit of data in every field. It's completely variable. So we grab our session cur data, which is really just a copy of e.data submitted, which is a pointer variable, and then we do a properties enum on it. So now we've got all the properties. So we know which controls are in there. Without the data, it's just the control names. So now we do a for each statement. So for each control name, so that's our setup, in my controls, and now that's our carriage return line feed delimited control names. So for each control name in my controls, we do an eval, and we are going to do a e.underbar set statement for every control name that we have for its value, where it equals an eval of session.currentData, which is our copy of e.data submitted, .control name. So e.set.first name value, so we're setting the first name value, for example, to the session.cur data, which is e.data submitted virtually, dot first name. So, and then we just loop through that, and then we go ahead and set e.setCustomer underbar ID dot value, because that's our key, because we actually copied that in as well. We can null it out now because now we're dealing with a new record. It doesn't matter. And in my case, we have to because it's an auto number, so I got to get rid of it. And that's it. So it's an interesting process, really, really cool, because we're kind of bouncing all over the place and we're using a number of different aspects of the system in order to transfer data all over the place. But again, because we're transmitting, because we're setting e.data submitted to a session variable, this contains everything in the UX component. It doesn't matter how many changes you make to it, doesn't matter how many controls you have in there, it makes no difference. It might make a difference depending on the type of control. I don't know, we haven't tested that out. But everything's in there. You don't have to know what controls are in the UX component. We just get it, set it, and off you go. So I think in order to demonstrate this, I've just commented out some code that tests for the action and for add, because we don't want to test for those, because I'm going to run this in live preview right now with some debugging in there so we can actually see what's going on. So we'll run this in full preview. So here's our on initialize, and there's our code that I just commented out. So if I go back up a little bit, we can see that ID should be equal to 2 because I set that to 2. Where is it? All the way up here. Here it is here. Because that's no longer true. So I just set this to 2 just to get a record. So now down here, we can step through this, and so there's Alpha's JavaScript, and ours is appended to the end. So I'm going to run this now, and then we're going to pop into close this down. Sorry, I hadn't saved it, so it wasn't running. So here we are again. We're going to do live preview. So here's our code. ID is equal to 2 because I set it to 2. And so we're going to run this, which is going to take Alpha JavaScript and append our own stuff to it. So we're going to run that. Then we're now in the get data function. So our session data is equal to our data submitted. So there's our data submitted. We can see it on the screen. So that's our current record. And so session.cur data is equal to our current record. So that's good. And we can step through this. And now we're going to return, run this. And now we're in set data. So we pass through our session current data. So we can see there's our pointer variable, company and first name and so on and so forth. And we can step through that. So there's my controls. So it's just the control names. That's all we need. And then for each control name in the controls, we're going to set up, there's company is equal to company. We step through that. So we're setting each one. And then we're going to run. Done. Thanks for watching.